an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Good morning, Bitcoin. Today is Sunday, June 7th, 2020. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is the World Crypto Network. The price of Bitcoin is down 1.75% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,489, a high of 9,722, and a low of 9,393. That's $1 for 10,539 Satoshis. Volume was a little low for a Sunday, with around 3,357 Bitcoins changing hands. The market continues to lean margin long, with 86% of the market heading that direction. Bitcoin dominance was at 65.59%. Give everyone a chance to like the show and to join the stream. Here's a reading from Hunter S. Thompson. Let's see. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Chapter 12. Hellish Speed. Grappling with the California Highway Patrol. Mano a mano on Highway 61. Tuesday, 12:30 p.m. Baker, California. Into Ballantine Ale now, zombie drunk and nervous. I recognize the feeling. Let's see, skipping ahead. About 5 miles back, I had a brush with the CHP. Not stopped or pulled over. Nothing routine. I always drive properly. A bit fast, perhaps, but always with consummate skill and a natural feel for the road that even cops recognize. No cop was ever born who isn't a sucker for a finely executed high-speed control drift all the way around one of those Cloverleaf freeway interchanges. Few people understand the psychology of dealing with a highway traffic cop. Your normal speeder will panic and immediately pull over to the side when he sees the big red light behind him. And then he will start apologizing, begging for mercy. This is wrong. It arouses contempt in the cop heart. The thing to do, when you're running along about 100 or so and you suddenly find a red flashing CHP tracker on your trail, what you want to do then is accelerate. Never pull over with the first siren haul. Mash it down and make the bastard chase you at speeds up to 120 all the way to the next exit. He will follow, but he won't know what to make of your blinker signal that says you're about to turn right. This is to let him know you're looking for a proper place to pull off and talk. Keep signaling and hope for an on-ramp, one of those uphill side loops with a sign saying max speed 25. And the trick, at this point, is to suddenly leave the freeway and take him into that chute at no less than 100 miles an hour. He will lock his brakes about the same time you lock yours, but it'll take him a moment to realize he's about to make a 180-degree turn at this speed. But you will be ready for it, braced for the G's and the fast heel-toe work. And with any luck at all, you will have come to a complete stop off the road at the top of the turn, and he will be standing beside your automobile by the time he catches up. He will not be reasonable at first, but no matter. Let him calm down. He will want the first word. Let him have it. His brain will be in a turmoil. He may even be jabbering or even pull his gun. Let him rewind. Keep smiling. The idea is to show him that you were always in total control of yourself and your vehicle, while he lost control of everything. It helps to have a police or press badge in your wallet when he calms down enough to ask for your license. I had one of these, but I also had a can of Budweiser in my hand. Until that moment, I was totally unaware that I was holding it. I felt totally on top of the situation, but when I looked down and saw that little red-silver evidence bomb in my hand, I knew I was fucked. Speeding is one thing, but drunk driving is quite another. The cop seemed to grasp this, that I'd blown my whole performance by forgetting the beer can. His face relaxed. He actually smiled. So did I, because we both understood in that moment that my Thunder Road moonshine bomber act had been totally wasted. We had both scared the piss out of ourselves for nothing at all, because the fact of this beer can in my hand made any argument about speeding beside the point. He accepted my open wallet with his left hand, then extended his right towards the beer can. "Could I have that?" he asked. "Why not?" I said. He took it, then held it between us and poured the beer out onto the road. I smiled, no longer caring. "It was getting warm anyway," I said. Just behind me, on the back seat of the Shark, I could see about 10 cans of hot Budweiser and a dozen or so grapefruits. I'd forgotten all about them, but now they were too obvious for either one of us to ignore. My guilt was so gross and overwhelming that explanations were useless. The cop understood this. "You realize," he said, "that it's a crime to—" "Yeah," I said. "I know, I'm guilty. I understand that. I knew it was a crime, but I did it anyway," I shrugged. "Shit, why argue? I'm a fucking criminal." "That's a strange attitude," he said. I stared at him, seeing for the first time that I was dealing with a bright-eyed young sport, around 30, who was apparently enjoying his work. "You know," he said, "I get the feeling you could use a nap." He nodded. "There's a rest area up ahead. Why don't you pull over and sleep for a few hours?" I instantly understood what he was telling me, but for some insane reason I shook my head. "A nap won't help," I said. "I've been awake for too long, 3 or 4 nights, I can't remember. If I go to sleep now, I'm dead for 20 hours. Good God, I thought. What have I said? This bastard is trying to be human. He could take me straight to jail, but he's telling me to take a fucking nap. For Christ's sakes, agree with him. Yes, officer, of course I'll take advantage of that rest area, and I can't tell you how grateful I am for this break you want to give me. But no. Here I was insisting that if he turned me loose, I would boom straight ahead for L.A., which was true. But why say it? Why push him? This is not the right time for a showdown. This is Death Valley. Get a grip on yourself. Of course, get a grip. Look, I said, I've been out in Las Vegas covering the Mint 400. I pointed to the VIP parking sticker on the windshield. Incredible, I said. All those bikes and dune buggies crashing around the desert for 2 days. Have you seen it? He smiled, shaking his head with a sort of melancholy understanding. I could see him thinking, was I dangerous? Was he ready for the vicious, time-consuming scene that was bound to come if he took me under arrest? How many off-duty hours would he have to spend hanging around the courthouse, waiting to testify against me? And what kind of monster lawyer would I bring to work out on him? I knew, but how could he? Okay, he said, here's how it is. What goes into my book, as of noon, is that I apprehended you for driving too fast for conditions, and I advised you, with this written warning, he handed it to me, to proceed no further than the next rest area, your stated destination, right? Where you plan to take a long nap. He hung his ticket pad back on his belt. Do I make myself clear? He asked as he turned away. I shrugged. How far is Baker? I was hoping to stop there for lunch. That's not in my jurisdiction, he said. The city limits are about 2.2 miles beyond the rest area. Can you make it that far? He grinned heavily. I'll try, I said. I've been wanting to go to Baker for a long time. I've heard a lot about it. Excellent seafood, he said. With a mind like yours, you'll probably want the land crab. Try the Majestic Diner. I shook my head and got back in the car feeling raped. The pig had done me on all fronts, and now he was going off to chuckle about it, on the west end of town, waiting for me to make a run for L.A. I got back on the freeway and drove past the rest area to the intersection where I had to turn right into Baker. As I approached the turn, I saw, great Jesus, it's him, the hitchhiker, the same kid we'd picked up and terrified on our way out to Vegas. Our eyes met as I slowed down to make the corner. I was tempted to wave, but when I saw him drop his thumb, I thought, no, this is not the time. God only knows what that kid said about us when he finally got back to town. Acceleration. Get out of sight at once. How could I be sure he'd recognized me? But the car was hard to miss, and why else would he suddenly back away from the road? I had two personal enemies in this godforsaken town. The CHP cop would bust me for sure if I tried to go on through to L.A., and this goddamned rotten kid hijacker would have me hunted down like a beast if I stayed. Holy Jesus, Sam. There he is. That guy the kid told us about. He's back. Either way, it was horrible. And if these righteous outback predators ever got their stories together, and they would, it was inevitable in a town this small, that would cash my check all around. I'd be lucky to leave town alive. A bar of tar and feathers dragged onto the prison bus by angry natives. That was it. The crisis. I raced through town and found a phone booth on the northern outskirts, between a Sinclair station and, yes, the Majestic Diner. I placed an emergency collect call to my attorney in Malibu. He answered at once. "They've nailed me," I shouted. "I'm trapped in some stinking desert crossroads called Baker. I don't have much time. The fuckers are closing in." "Who?" he said. "You sound a little paranoid." "You bastard," I screamed. "First I got run down by the CHP, then that kid spotted me. I need a lawyer immediately." "What are you doing in Baker?" he said. "Didn't you get my telegram?" "What? Fuck telegrams. I'm in trouble." "You're supposed to be in Vegas," he said. "We have a suite at the Flamingo. I was just about to leave for the airport." I slumped in my booth. It was too horrible. Here I was, calling my attorney in the moment of terrible crisis, and the fool was deranged on drugs. A goddamn vegetable. "You worthless bastard," I groaned. "I'll cripple your ass for this. All that shit in the car is yours. You understand that? When I've finished testifying out here, why, you'll be disbarred." "You brainless scumbag," he shouted. "I sent you a telegram. You're supposed to be covering the National District Attorney Convention. I made all the reservations, registered a white Cadillac convertible. The whole thing is arranged. What the hell are you doing out there in the middle of the fucking desert?" Suddenly I remembered. Yes, the telegram. It was all very clear. My mind became calm. I saw the whole thing in a flash. "Never mind," I said. "It's all a big joke. I'm actually sitting beside the pool at the Flamingo. I'm talking from a portable phone. Some dwarf brought it out from the casino. I have total credit. Can you grasp that?" I was breathing heavily, feeling crazy, sweating into the phone. "Don't come anywhere near this place," I shouted. "Foreigners aren't welcome here." I hung up and strolled out to the car. Well, I thought, this is how the world works. All energy flows to the whims of the great magnet. What a fool I was to defy him. He knew all along. It was he who sacked me in Baker. I had run far enough, so he nailed me, closing off all my escape routes, hassling me first with the CHP, and then with this filthy phantom hitchhiker, plunging me into fear and confusion. Never cross the great magnet. I understood that now. And with this understanding came a sense of almost terminal relief. Yes, I would go back to Vegas, slip the kid and confound the CHP by moving east again instead of west. This would be the shrewdest move of my life. Back to Vegas and sign up for the Drugs and Narcotics Convention. Me and 1,000 pigs. Why not? Move confidently into their midst. Register at the Flamingo and have the white caddy sent over at once. Do it right. Remember Horatio Alger. I looked across the road and saw a huge red sign that said beer. Wonderful. I left the shark by the phone booth and reeled across the highway into the hardware barn. A Jew leaned up from a pile of sprockets and asked me what I wanted. "Ballantine Ale," I said. "A very mystic long shot, unknown between Newark and San Francisco." He served it up, ice cold. I relaxed. Suddenly, everything was going right. I was finally getting the breaks. The bartender approached me with a smile. "Where you heading, young man?" "Las Vegas," I said. He smiled. "A great town, that Vegas. You'll have good luck there. You're the type." "I know," I said. "I'm a triple Scorpio." He seemed pleased. "That's a fine combination," he said. "You can't lose." I laughed. "Don't worry," I said. "I'm actually the district attorney from Ignato County. Just another good American like yourself. His smile disappeared. But did he understand? I couldn't be sure. But that hardly mattered now. I was going back to Vegas. I had no choice. A little reading there from Hunter S. Thompson, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And a preview coming up on Big Book Sunday. We've got Gonzo by Hunter S. Thompson, photographs and more. Definitely a big book. And bonus big book, because it's Sunday, why not have two? Gonzo Art by Ralph Steadman. Large, color, and more photographs by the man who illustrated Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, as well as several of his other books. Coming up later on Big Book Sunday. But first, Colin Powell endorses Joe Biden for president. Republican Colin Powell endorses Joe Biden. And Republican former President George W. Bush endorses Joe Biden for president. Two Republicans endorsing Joe Biden. And this, the National Guard is going to begin withdrawing out of Washington, D.C. The National Guard is withdrawing from D.C. We are seeing a demilitarization of the response to the protest. And you know what that means. Somebody's getting tired of winning. There was just too much winning out there. All this winning is going to continue because the National Guard is withdrawing from D.C. And now, here's the Bitcoin. Forget 10K, Bitcoin 12K breakout will catch everyone off guard. What about 13 and 14 and 15? 17 is an often confusing and forgotten number. Is Bitcoin allergic to 10,000? Will we see a breakout in 2020 for this Bitcoin as key level keeps getting tested each week? We're going to need graphics. Bitcoin price yet again surged past 10K for just a few hours before experiencing a sharp 10% sell-off last week. Each time this happens, crypto Twitter brings out the fanfare, rejoicing at the fact that we've reached this psychological milestone. It's almost becoming too predictable, and that's why the eventual breakout will catch everyone off guard. Order book, Fibonacci's, weekly ascending channels, 4-hour charts, bullish scenario, and bearish scenario. Let's go bullish scenario. Lastly, on the hourly chart, we have the price trending downwards with the MACD trending upwards, which signals bullish diversion, meaning that an upside is to be expected. As such, the bullish scenario of extending downwards towards the first key resistance of 10,500 looks likely in the short term. Finally, breaking out from this level would put 12K firmly within reach before experiencing heavy overhead resistance at 13,900. And now the opposite, bearish scenario. The first sign of trouble for Bitcoin would be losing 9250. From here, 9,000 would be the last safe level of support before cascading down to sub 8,000 levels, a scenario which I personally think is unlikely, according to the author. He must have one of those magic 8 balls. Bitcoin's average transaction fees fall by 83% from post-halving high. As always, the fee problem works itself out, almost just like a market. The Escobars believe they've found the real Satoshi. Meet Yatsuka Nakamoto, drug runner for Pablo Escobar, brother of Dorian Nakamoto, and possibly the real creator of Bitcoin. This is very weird. A new theory regarding the true identity of anonymous Bitcoin creator Satoshi Nakamoto has emerged from an extremely unlikely source. Enter the Escobar family and their story about Yatsuka Nakamoto. The story goes like this. Yatsuka Nakamoto was a high-ranking engineer for Pacific West Airlines who worked for Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar, smuggling drugs into the U.S. from South America. Yatsuka disappeared completely from public view in 1992 after surviving an assassination attempt by his former employer. He then surfaced years later to create according to what? He then resurfaced years later to create and launch Bitcoin. He is also supposedly the brother of Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto. Based upon what? Okay. At least that's the story told to Cointelegraph by Olaf Gustafsson, CEO of Escobar Incorporated, the multinational holding company associated with the Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar. Gustafsson is the 27-year-old Swedish entrepreneur who started his first business at age 13. By the time he was 21, he had become CEO of the Escobar's multinational conglomerate based in Medellin, Colombia. Why are we hearing this story now? Yes, I'm wondering too. In a recent phone call with Cointelegraph, Gustafsson, the right-hand man to Pablo's brother Robert, relayed this fantastical version of events in an effort, he says, to silence some of the furor created by self-proclaimed Satoshi Nakamoto, Craig S. Wright. Oh, here he is with a AK-47. There you go. According to Gustafsson, Yatsuka's position as head engineer for Pacific West Airlines made him the perfect insider for Escobar's drug smuggling operations. Where commercial pilot Barry Seal, played by Tom Cruise in the film American Made, I'm sensing a movie tie-in, had previously delivered drugs for Escobar, Yatsuka could continue carrying the torch thanks to the largely unrestricted access afforded him in his role at the airline. Gustafsson goes on to claim that Yatsuka's experience with microprocessors and semiconductors supplied him with a base of technical knowledge that he would need to later apply to the world's first cryptocurrency. According to Gustafsson, Yatsuka was a renegade, wild enough to work for Pablo Escobar, but stubborn enough to never pledge his loyalty. I'm not sure how microprocessors and semiconductors would give him technical knowledge for Bitcoin, but I guess it's some very base level stuff. He could learn anything from there, I suppose. I would prefer if it said, hey, he studied economics and he understood programming and he understood digital tokens or something. He'd studied those things. That would have been better. Yatsuka's public profile. The only public mention of any Yatsuka Nakamoto can be found online. A story of huge aircraft employee Yatsuka A. Nakamoto from 1992, who emerged unscathed after finding a pipe bomb in his car while parked at work. Whoa. Found the device under the seat. He thought the car had been burglarized, but then he found the device. No more details on the bomb. Escobar Incorporated is a many-headed hydra that's dabbled in Bitcoin. Oh, he launched a fork of Bitcoin. That's great. They had a GoFundMe campaign that raised $50 million to impeach Donald Trump, claiming to have information crucial to Mueller's investigation. The campaign was removed to a lack of clarity before the funds were allocated, but it raised $10 million in 10 hours. Threatened Netflix with a $1 billion lawsuit. Allegedly about inaccurate depictions of his persona in the hit Narcos. He also wanted to edit subsequent seasons of the show himself. There was a trademark dispute with the Escobars and Bitcoin. So this seems really fishy. I also don't know about this Dorian connection. His name is Akko. The name of Akko is registered at the address of Dorian. And they think he's dead too. Bitcoin was one of his final acts before passing away in the early 2010s. Very strange. So there it is. Possible new Bitcoiner, Satoshi Nakamoto candidate working with the Escobars. Very, very strange. First time reading of it. Especially interesting is the connection to, or the potential connection, hardly explained, to Dorian Nakamoto. Remember Newsweek, actually the Daily Beast, who bought Newsweek, did a famous story where they were very excited that they had found Satoshi, and they claimed that it was Dorian Nakamoto. They never seemed to have any good evidence. The only evidence they were going on, as it turned out, was she had asked him directly, and it sounded like he was tired of talking to her, and he had agreed just to get away from the woman. So later on, he denied it all and took the media for a free lunch. But for him to be somehow connected to this other Nakamoto means that maybe Newsweek did something smarter than just asking him if he was Satoshi. If only that were true, that would be a big link for this story. Because I don't think that's true, because I don't think Newsweek did anything smarter than just asking people from the phone book if they were Satoshi, I don't think this is true either. I think that that false link paints the whole rest of this bad, as well as the fact that the Escobar company, whatever it is, clearly wants to be involved in Bitcoin, and having this story is good for them. I do agree, like he said, that it's a great idea to distract from Craig Wright with this story, but I don't think that makes the story any more true. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Is the Escobar's engineer really Satoshi Nakamoto? And who do you think Satoshi is? Find out soon. Meanwhile, the price of Bitcoin was down 1.87% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,482, a high of 9,722, and a low of 9,393. That's $1 for 10,546 Satoshis. Volume's a little high for a weekend, with 3,389 Bitcoins trading hands, higher than the usual 2,000 that we would see on weekends. The market continues to lean margin long, with 86% of the market heading that direction, and Bitcoin dominance is at 65.58%. But first, Gonzo art. Let's take a look at this. There's a random big one here. I don't know what it is. I can't see it. It's like some monsters eating food, stuffing the food into their mouths. Here's a strange one. Looks like maybe from the Curse of Lono, maybe an outtake. Looks like all the natives there in Hawaii getting ready to attack and eat Thompson or Cook. Monstrous, chaotic figures here from Stedman. Truly horrifying. There's more Curse of Lono type masks. You can see there. And it's interesting to see how important maybe the illustrations were to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I mean, Alice in Wonderland also has fantastic illustrations by Tenniel. And they're the long wood cuts with the grain on them, and you can really see them. But in the same way, maybe this book, having the pictures, having a visual imagery to it. I was reading, even from my fancy National Library version of the Fear and Loathing, it has a bunch of spots all over the text that make it hard to read, as if blood was purposefully, or not purposefully, but blood was spilled on the document. So the book itself has some character to it. It reminds me of Tom Robbins' fantastic Still Life with Woodpecker, which part of it he writes on a typewriter, and then part of it is handwritten. And it's all part of the narrative. It's all part of the story. Like these monsters. I'd like to find the one of the... oh, there we go. There's some classic Fear and Loathing. I'm sure you've seen this a lot on movie covers and posters and book covers and such. Different versions. They like to do different versions of book covers to try to sell some more books. And movies too, I've noticed. At first they'd go back to the poster. Sorry, mate, just routine, nothing personal. They'd go back to the poster, but now they do close-ups of the actors' faces are the most popular. They have to make sideways movie posters for different views on Netflix, different views on other streaming services. The poster, again, just like all art kind of these days, it's something to get you to click on, right? Click on the poster, watch the movie, read the description. Netflix already started playing the movie. I turned that off, though. Yep, you can turn off the Netflix autoplay thing. It's pretty incredible. There's more from the Kentucky Derby is decadent and depraved. Let's see if we can fix the focus there. Focus, please. Anyway, there's some crazy horses. Looks pretty good. You can see what's going on. I don't know. Or you can't. There goes that focus again. Great job, computer. Come on. There it is. So there's Ralph Steadman from the book Gonzo Art. Gonzo the Art by Ralph Steadman. So on Big Book Sunday, and this is a big book cleanser. This is a clearer to get all the news, or well, to get all the Bitcoin news out of your head so you're ready for the real news and the horror. But again, we had some good news today. They have withdrawn the National Guard, presumably signaling a change in direction on how they want to handle this, presumably meaning that they're going to listen to the protesters and try to reform the police system and try to improve things, which might lead to a de-escalation of the protests, which might mean to getting back to normal, as in normal being our planned second outbreak of the coronavirus, which is coming up soon. So stay tuned. Let's see what's happening in the news. So much news. A judge is blocking the release of Jeffrey Epstein's records, also has ties to officials linked to Epstein. That's shocking. Shocking. I am shocked to find gambling in this establishment. Here's the view from Philadelphia. A poster describes the crowd as unfathomable. He can't even guess. Look at the size. I mean, it starts all the way back here, goes all the way through the park, up to this center part of the park. Look at that. I mean, that's bigger than the Golden State Warriors victory parade. It's bigger than Barack Obama's inauguration. Certainly bigger than Trump's inauguration. But look at that. Peaceful protesters in Philadelphia. They've had enough. The shot keeps going. It's still zooming out. Look at that. Just filling the square in Philadelphia. Not bad, huh? Not bad at all. Raw Story writes, "We are witnessing the birth of a movement and the downfall of a president." Shout out to Ben right here on the World Crypto Network. Ben's made this new little device. As you can see, it's really small, and it plays Tetris. So that's great. That would be enough, right? But this device, if you reset it and push the right button, becomes a Bitcoin wallet. It's a little complicated. He has you entering your PIN number with Morse code. I don't know if that'll last in other versions, but there it is. You've got a secret Bitcoin wallet you can send and receive. You might need to copy the transactions out or something, connect it with an SD card or some kind of thing. But there it is, another little way that you could hide Bitcoin into a common electric device. Cool, huh? Looks just like it plays Tetris. That's all it does. The entire perimeter of the White House and the eclipse is now completely fenced in. A significant addition from yesterday. Estimates are that it could be 1.7 miles of fence. So the president has achieved his goals. He has built a wall. He has built a wall here in America. It's unclear if Mexico is going to pay for the president's wall. We'll find out. This woman was upset. She said they played their game, played your game, and you dropped bombs on us. It's pretty angry. Let's give it a try. So she's quoting Trevor Noah, and Trevor Noah was talking about how it really wasn't fair for African Americans. They tried to participate in the system, but were stopped at every point by various blockages, and they would start businesses, but they'd get wrecked, and they'd start this, and there'd be riots. So it was really a powerful report by Trevor Noah. Let's see how it affected her. Let's see. Volume, computer?
Ours. We don't own anything. Why do you burn down the community? Why do you burn down your own neighborhood? It's not ours. We don't own anything. We don't own anything. Trevor Noah said it so beautifully last night. There's a social contract that we all have, that if you steal or if I steal, then the person who is the authority comes in and they fix the situation. But the person who fixes the situation is killing us. So the social contract is broken. And if the social contract is broken, why the fuck do I give a shit about burning the fucking Football Hall of Fame, about burning a fucking Target? You broke the contract when you killed us in the streets and didn't give a fuck. You broke the contract when for 400 years we played your game and built your wealth. You broke the contract when we built our wealth again on our own by our bootstraps in Tulsa and you dropped bombs on us. When we built it in Rosewood and you came in and you slaughtered us. You broke the contract, so fuck your Target. Fuck your Hall of Fame. As far as I'm concerned, they could burn this bitch to the ground. And it still wouldn't be enough. And they are lucky that what black people are looking for is equality and not revenge.
Oh, great ending. Fantastic speech. I didn't know what to expect there. Obviously some profanity, but what a great ending. It's a good thing they're looking for equality and not for revenge. Ooh, powerful. And again, more images of Philadelphia. The incredible size of the crowds. As it says here, Chopper 6 over the protest against police brutality being held at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. I think just offhand, movie locations, this is the steps that Rocky climbs in Philadelphia. So fantastic sized crowd. Truly amazing. Great job, Philadelphia. Even here it looks social distanced, but who knows? We can really hope for that. As far as we know on this, there's been no record of outdoor transmission of the virus. A lot of protesters are wearing masks, and I respect them for that. The real problem comes if any of the protesters are arrested and put in jail. Jail is indoors. They all breathe the same air. Most are still wearing masks in jail, but obviously there's going to be transmission of the virus in jail, and there may be transmission of the virus out here. So yes, we're keeping an eye on both stories. We have to walk and chew gum at the same time. It can be very difficult. This is a shocking story. The police have tripled down. They previously doubled down. So initially we had the report where the officers who pushed down the 75-year-old man in Buffalo were suspended without pay. Right? Good thing. Suspended without pay. Maybe fired would have been just as good, right? But the other officers on that emergency response team were so offended that these officers were being punished for hurting an old man and then not giving him first aid right away and just being callous assholes, that they all quit the emergency response task force. So this must have been like a volunteer thing you can do. Like if you want to be a really good cop, you can volunteer to go beat people up. But they all quit. But they're still working. They're still paid by the police. So don't worry. There was about 57, 59 of these officers. And they told people at the time, the mayor of Buffalo went on TV and he said that it was the police union. That the police union was making them do it because they have to maintain contracts and rights. And even if the guy beats somebody up, you want to keep them their job. So that was one thing when the police did it. But now here's those same officers cheering and applauding for the officers who knocked down the 75-year-old man as they're let out of prison. Let's go all the way here for Twitter video. Have a special tab, and here we go, full screen. That's right, they're cheering the officers who beat the 75-year-old man.
Charged with felony assault during a protest in Buffalo, and they were applauded by their colleagues as they left the courthouse. Officers Robert McCabe and Aaron Torgalski pleaded not guilty. They were released without bail, and we've been showing you the video of this.
So this right here is a mistake.
This happened.
This is, they went too far. You see right here, it says AIU. He's a union man right there, likely. I don't know for sure, but just guessing. And yeah, you can't do this. They're on the wrong side here, and they've doubled and tripled down. So really all Buffalo has left is to fire all of these officers. They all have to go. They don't understand, like the lady said previously, that we have a social contract. And when they knock people down, when they put their knee on someone's neck until they die for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, whatever it is, they violate that contract. Clearly a violation. And if the contract's violated, then we can't do the community policing where, he's the guy from Mayberry, Andy, and he comes in, you're like, hey, Andy, how you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm doing fine, Tom. Things are great here in town. And, we can't do that, right? Because no one's going to call Andy anymore. Obviously, that lady on TV is not calling Andy. I'm not calling Andy. Think about it. Somebody could be spray painting on the park near your house, just covering the streets with graffiti and, splotches of paint everywhere, just complete madness. You call the police on them, the police show up, and they murder those kids. The murder is now on your hands. So you can't call the police. The contract's broken. They're a military group now, and they're applauding the officers who knocked down the 75-year-old man, which the entire country just finished watching on TV all day. Over and over and over and over and over, they played it, even though they blurred out his head for some reason, which is, we got to stop blurring the violence. We got to stop not showing the effects of war, etc. on TV. That makes it continue. It softens it by definition. Don't soften it. Let it happen. There's that other video with the guy's head hits the ground. Sadly, true evidence of what's happening, visceral things that react, that shock, are needed to break people out of their old habits. So maybe this does it for you. Here's the officers applauding the people who knocked down the 75-year-old man while the rest of the country watches in horror.
This happened just in the last hour. 2 police officers were charged.
And again, union guys are trying to be strong for their contracts and trying to be strong for their members, but they made a big mistake there. They went way too far. So we'll see how that goes. Story developing. Senator Tammy Duckworth, I think that's former Senator Duckworth, is demanding investigations by and information from the Department of Defense and the FAA following reports of low-flying military aircraft intimidating protesters in D.C. after Trump's threat of military action against protesters on Monday. And again, all of this is going to come out. There's going to be records on all of this. Fortunately, unfortunately, whatever you want to say, the military is a big bureaucracy. They have lots of forms and papers. We generally know where most of the airplanes are flying and why. So if we have airplanes that are off the grid, messing with protesters, we're going to find out. We're going to find out who ordered it, so on and so forth, all the way up the line. Robert Reich writes, 76 years ago today, Allied Antifa forces stormed the beaches in Normandy. We must remain vigilant against fascism in all of its forms. And a reminder that Donald Trump has declared Antifa as a terrorist organization, despite there being no organization, and despite it really being the rallying cry of the United States of America in World War II, when we fought against fascism. Kumal Nanjani writes, are they applauding their colleagues for assaulting a 75-year-old man? Or are they applauding themselves for walking over him as he bled from his head? So much to applaud about, all around. So people are noticing. They're taking notice of what happens in Buffalo. It's pretty amazing what camera phones can do. Awful new polling for Trump. Only 32% approve of his handling of the George Floyd aftermath. 74% think that the Floyd killing shows broader problems in police treatment of blacks. 57% say the police are more likely to use deadly force against blacks. The idea that you could crush these protests with military force, the idea that you could stomp them down with riot police and tear gas has failed horribly. We all knew it would. Spoiler alert, obviously a lot of people got hurt. It's unfortunate that had to happen, but once again, Gandhi tactics win. Forceful, violent tactics just expose you as a tyrant. That's why even Trump has withdrawn the National Guard from D.C. Now, I don't know if they're going to come back. Could be a surprise. You never know with military, so on and so forth. But they are, at least for now, withdrawing the National Guard from Washington, D.C. Oh, there we go again. This is your classic American story. African-American man trying to surrender with his hands in the air. Notice, right? Police come up on him, kick him in the back, and then start beating and pounding on him. Of course, obviously, he was resisting arrest by having his hands in the air. They've now got him on the ground. They're now attacking the people in the car.
Are you kidding me right now? This is my car. It's not even his car.
Just stay right here.
He's driving. He just got out. He just got out of breakfast. I have to be able to.
We know exactly where you got out of. He's got a warrant for his arrest. Just let him. Well, that's his business. But you just stay over here. Just stay out of the way. Thank you. Okay, you're not part of this.
I know I'm not part of it. Can you please tell me what's going on then?
He has a warrant for his arrest. That's all I'm going to tell you. Yes, and he's not complying
There's
with our
four
command.
people
It's
on
that
top
simple.
of him. He had
All
his
you gotta do is
hands
walk
in
back
the
to us,
air,
it's game over.
and that's called non-compliance. So again, hands in the air, like he probably knows he has a warrant out for his arrest. This is a pretty common thing when you're on parole or whatever. Sometimes you get picked up. Sometimes, he evaded his parole or something. He's surrendering. They have him under control, but instead they have to kick him down, tussle him down, tackle him to the ground, put him on the cement. 4 cops tackling him at this point. It's always amazing how strong these guys are. They always need an advantage of at least 4-1. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 cops plus this other guy. So it takes 5 people to take down one person. There it is. Again, more police violence, more brutality. A black man putting his hands up. Then he gets tased for no reason. And when that doesn't work, he gets a ninja kick and a beat down. In America. Yesterday, Trump visited the coronavirus swab production line in Maine. He refused to wear a mask, and the manufacturer now says they're going to have to throw away the entire day's output. So all of the work that everyone did making cotton swabs is all ruined and spoiled because the anti-science president wouldn't wear a mask. Idiot. And like Molly Young-Fast writes, it's a metaphor for the entire presidency. We have to throw out everything that happened in the last 4 years, undo it all, and then maybe, just maybe, we could get back to normal. Lots of people talking about the potential spread of the coronavirus in the crowds. Balaji writes, the sheer scale of the crowds in all 50 states and many Western countries means the virus now has distribution. It was already at millions of cases worldwide. The likely outcome is for it to achieve the maximum of what was thought possible, at least in the West. So shout out to the coronavirus. It's going to be achieving its goals and dreams. It's going to make the most people sick. It's going to damage the most organs, and it's likely going to wipe out the entire older generation. Great job, everyone. Balaji says, masks and outdoors aren't magic. If you come into close proximity with others for hours, chanting and hugging, that is likely to spread the virus. Tear gas and confinement make it worse. Add in then the dispersion effect, where many strangers gather in huge crowds and then head home. So yes, humans are doing a great job spreading the virus. We'll see how that works out. Let's see, a photo, they say, sums it up. Where'd you click on photo? Oh, yeah, there it is. There's a police officer in Columbus, Ohio. Looks like he's bear macing a black man at close range. The black man has his hands up in the air, clearly surrendering, but still, bear mace in the face. With a canister like that, you're not supposed to shoot it that close. It's supposed to be 3 to 5 feet away. You'll see this same canister in the UC Davis case, where the officer sprayed protesting students who were on the ground, on their knees, protesting, and he sprayed them at close range like this. He lost the case. He lost his job. The college and the police department had to pay the protesters, and it wasted a bunch of lawyers' time and court time and everyone's time, and it was all completely unnecessary. And here it is. It's going to happen again. Columbus, Ohio. This officer's face is clearly visible in the photograph, and that will likely be enough. He's made a terrible choice to hurt another human being here, and I hope that he'll be prosecuted. I hope he'll be arrested. Health officials warn of potential coronavirus exposure at Calusa Casino. This is back in my old neck of the woods in Sacramento, around that area, Northern California. And they say that health officials issued a notice Friday of potential exposure to coronavirus at the Calusa Casino Resort. As county officials say, any person who visited the casino on June 1st between 2 p.m. and 4:45 p.m. may have been exposed to COVID-19. Casino management told CBS 13 that 2 people who were in the casino at that time tested positive for coronavirus. The casino held an official reopening on June 3rd, but said guests were able to visit on June 1st and 2nd by invitation only. Health officials urge anyone who has visited the casino at that time to monitor themselves for COVID-19 symptoms, including fever, cough, shortness of breath, chills, loss of smell or taste, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle aches, or sore throat. Anyone who experiences these symptoms is encouraged to immediately contact their health providers. And what's so important to me about this story is this is just inches away from reading at the Las Vegas Flamingo Hilton last night, and that guests who attended Las Vegas could then get the virus. This is such a mistake. I know that it's hard for people to tell that, yes, some people are going out into the streets and risking their lives to protest. And I think they know that. I think they know they're risking their lives to protest, and they've made the calculation in their mind that this injustice is so great, and I agree, it's a great injustice, that they should go out and take what is, depending on your risk factors, a minimal to a large risk to try to settle this injustice, right? And you take all the things you can, you try to have your mask, and you try to stay apart from people, and you hope you don't get tear gassed, and you hope you don't get arrested and all that. But here we have other people who just want to gamble, right? They just want to wager their money to win more money, or they want to drink, or they want to smoke inside, or I don't know that they have any shows or anything like that. But they're just very excited to get out and get to those recreational activities. And I love Vegas. I think it's a fun idea and everything. But the idea that they're bringing in people from all over the country to then be inside, most of them not wearing masks. Shout out to everyone who works at the casino. They're all wearing masks, respect. But the guests are not. And the guests are the ones most likely to bring you the virus from their town and to spread it to someone else. And then we have one of these announcements. If you were in Las Vegas, you might have the virus. And it's horrible, and I wish we could prevent it and all that. But people have decided that the risk is worth it, and so on and so forth. They've made their calculations based upon what quality of information, I don't know. I was just reading another article there about permanent damages to injuries, to permanent organ damage from the coronavirus. They were talking about a 32-year-old guy who had the virus for 2 or 3 weeks, and he's having trouble moving around the house. He doesn't have great strength. He feels terrible. I'd talked before of people who used to be marathon runners. Now they can barely breathe. Like, it's a pretty rough virus if it kills old people. There's nothing to say that it does nothing to young people. I don't know how that idea got out there. It's a wonderful fantasy that you have. But if you think about it, if the virus is bad enough that it'll take out an old person, what will it do to a young person? If it's a 10 to an old, maybe it's a 7 to young, or a 5. So that would be half. So you could have half of your lung capacity. You could have half of your ability to breathe. You could have half of your stomach function. Seems like a pretty big risk. I just learned how to cut my hair at home, right? Just shave that sucker. That'll work. More bad news from New York City, at least according to physic.org. They say that New York police will apparently, allegedly, use the LRAD device, the long-range acoustic device, if protesters go near bridges, as if the protesters could damage the bridge. Reminder that LRADs are capable of permanently damaging your hearing. So again, this is the famed sonic weapon, the noise cannon. not like the Golden Gate Bridge, but actually on purpose, focused sonic weaponry to be tested on the American people. That's great. Sign up. Jess Dweck writes, still thinking about how people were saying, it's not all cops. Then literally all cops in Buffalo were like, no, it's all of us. And I totally agree. I think it's a horrible idea for the Buffalo police to resign from that committee. Then an even worse idea to go and applaud the guys publicly when they come back. You know the media was standing behind you. You could have had a private meeting inside. You could have all shown up to a bar and it would just be a surprise. But you did it outside. You did it publicly. And you did it to shove it in the faces of everyone else that we can get away with smashing a 75-year-old guy, laugh about it, clap about it, bring our families to it. I'm not sure if they're part of the whole human thing that the rest of us have going. So, CBS News learned that on Monday, the president said he wanted 10,000 troops patrolling streets across the country. Miley, Barr, and Esper. No, it's Miller. It's Stephen Miller. I guess. I'm not sure. Unless there's a guy named Miley there that I don't know. Miley, Barr, and Esper all recommended against it. So the president had to be talked down by these radicals. Even the radicals didn't want to unleash troops in America. Los Angeles Times writes, a lawyer is tweeting videos of police using force at protest. There are more than 350 videos, and that's certainly what it feels like. We've been watching video after video of police brutality on the American people. Many of them peaceful protesters. Many of the incidents started by the police. And this message needs to get out there. This keeps happening. Peter Glick writes, this is a nice sick burn here as we see many people in Las Vegas back pretending as if there were no virus at all, not wearing their masks. Who would want to mess up their makeup? And Peter writes, casinos have always done best with people who do not understand math, statistics, or risk. It's a dark thought, but a fair one. Zenny Jardine writes, one of the things I've learned from the whole COVID-19 thing is that a lot of people are fucking stupid. I agree with that. And Vitalik Buterin keeps waking up to the world. He's like a chicken that comes out of his egg. Every once in a while, he sticks his head out and he's like, wow, is that how things really work? And apparently Vitalik has been introduced to journalism. So he says, so what's the justification for this custom where the person who writes an article for a media site is often not the person who chooses the title? My current impression is that this custom is appalling and we shouldn't stand for it, but happy to hear arguments to the contrary. And basically, not to go into it too much, but there are these people who work at newspapers and magazines called editors, Vitalik, and these people edit the newspaper and the magazine. And in the past, the newspaper and the magazine would have kind of a voice or a style, and the editors could help maintain this style. And while at first, I think the editors were consulting on headlines and consulting on fixing articles, now in the world of clickbait and internet, www, they changed the headlines to clickbait headlines. So I'm very glad. It's taken a long time. It's 2020, but the boy genius has discovered clickbait headlines, and he is against them. So thank you, Vitalik, for your strong words against clickbait headlines. Not sure what this has to do with cryptocurrency, but thank you for consulting. Here's a police officer. Man was just walking by. They're attacking him. They bring in a second officer. They bring in a third officer. They've got their riot gears. They bring in a fourth officer. They're parking their bicycles. Look, they've got a whole row of officers, all to take down this one person who was just walking by. Really strong. And yes, the police were spotted instigating violence several times against protesters. Don't let this go unseen. So we continue to cover this. 2 cops brutally attacked an elderly man on camera, let him bleed, leave him for dead, lie about their actions, get caught, don't even get fired, just suspended, and every other single member of the elite unit quits in protest. The culture of policing, and it's pretty amazing. The Buffalo cops have just given us this little microcosm of how it works and why we can't reform it by removing a few bad apples. Clearly, the two men who pushed him down are interchangeable with all the other men. I hate to say that, but that's what they've shown us through their actions. No one provides him with first aid. No one stops, even puts something under his head, calls an ambulance, so on and so forth. It chastises the other person. What the fuck did you do? Why did you knock him down? There's no response at all. Then you give them a breather. You give them time to think about what they've done, right? And they come back with this police union response that we're all quitting the elite team. And that was, again, you had a choice. Any of them could have said, no, I'm going to quit the police union, or no, I'm going to quit my job, or no, I'm going to stay on that task force. None of them did. They all went together. Then if you saw the crowd we just played earlier with the cheering, they all went together for these guys to come out of jail. They are all on a team. And that's what I think we have to understand here is originally when this started, the police would live in the same neighborhood as you and I, and then they would police us, right? But the problem is you might see those guys at the grocery store, right? You might run into them at the local park, and they might not like you. So it changed. And now the police live in fancy houses far away from you and I. And when they go to meetings and things, they all hang out with other cops. So they have this kind of closed environment, right? This ecosystem that's closed to outsiders. So it makes it easy for them to attack outsiders. That old man is the other. He is not police. So he doesn't matter. And that's why we can't just throw out the two guys. That's why we have to fire them all. We have to restructure the whole thing. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if they're going to do it. That seems like the only solution that I see to actually solving this problem. Then we reinstitute it from the top down as community policing. They never get riot helmets. They never get Bearcats and armored personnel vehicles. They never get machine guns. All of these things, you just say no. I mean, yes, you can hold some in reserve for the SWAT team, but you don't use the SWAT team on normal people. And even the SWAT team needs to be used at special occasions, not every time somebody calls you up on the phone. So again, there's a lot of problems with policing. Been talking about it for years. People have been covering it for years. But hopefully these events are finally leading to a breakthrough where things change and get better. Protesters in Seattle ordered to disperse as the police move in. That's only 4 seconds. Let's see. Again, who brought all these weapons? Was it the protesters? No, those are flashbang grenades set off by the police and gas canisters and so forth. They attacked the protesters pretty good in Seattle last night. We've got a lot of pictures and video of it. And they were also surprised because they had the whole detente the other night where they let them protest all night long. As we said, LRAD cannons and sound cannons are not safe. Check out this YouTube video on how to minimize their effect. Protect your precious hearing and or watch him torture himself with hypersonic audio weapons. The same kind of torture that allegedly the New York Police Department wants to bring to American streets. Once again, with the non-lethal rubber bullets, they do hurt people. They're definitely not hurtful, and they could kill. So the same thing with these sonic weapons. It's supposed to be not permanent damage, but as you see, it can cause permanent damage. So it shouldn't be used. You wouldn't use it on lab rats, but they're going to use it in New York on the people. So great stuff. Several Minnesota police cruisers cruise by peaceful demonstrators and pepper spray them from moving vehicle for no reason. This is actually the second time we've seen this from Minnesota, from Minneapolis police. Maybe it's just a trend. Maybe it's something they train their people to do. So there we are, peaceful protesters on the side of the road, and we see the first puffs of smoke way back there of the bear mace or tear gas being shot directly out of the cars. This is a drive-by macing. They slow down there to shoot more of the protesters.
Oh, what the fuck? You just sprayed them! You fucking bitch ass cops. Didn't get that motherfucker.
They're spraying multiple cops. Multiple cops are spraying out of the windows. So, again, which cop is the good cop and which cop is the bad cop? Well, one of them's driving and the other one's spraying. So the one who's driving is responsible because he's facilitating the spraying. The one who's spraying is responsible because he's spraying. The other problem is that this is now multiple vehicles now. We have that one vehicle here that's in front, sprays out of one side. The other officer sprays out of the other side. You can see his cans ready. Second vehicle now spraying out of the right side. Second vehicle moves forward. And then we have, looks like a third vehicle. Yep, you can see the spraying out of the left side. So that's the driver. He's driving and spraying, which should be illegal, right? You're supposed to focus on driving. That's not safe. But that's 3 vehicles. So this is clearly a police tactic. Maybe 4. Can't quite tell there. 3 at least, though. So 3 officers in 3 vehicles of the Minneapolis Police Department thought it was a good idea to randomly pepper spray or randomly bear mace a bunch of protesters on the side of the road. Some of them have their hands up. They're not coming back to arrest them, so this is just torture or punishment. They're supposed to have judges and juries, have a legal system, all that. You're not supposed to be, Judge Dredd out here. Oh, the law. I am the law. I'm the law. Oh, I'm the law. I'm the law. I'm the law. So there it is. And yeah, they've all got to go. Like the entire culture's got to go. Like if anybody watches that and they're like, I hope someday I could grow up to become a cop. We don't want you as a cop. Like you should not do that. You should get some therapy. But yeah, crazy stuff just keeps happening. We keep showing it. You can make up your own mind about it if you think it's a fine thing for police to do. I'm not so sure. Again, the Onion is getting also awful close to the truth, even so much so we might have to read it. Remember that in the medieval times, it was only the court jester that could tell the truth. Right to the king's face, the court jester would walk in and just say, you're ugly and not very smart. And they'd laugh because they thought he was joking. But no, he meant it. And here it is from the Onion. Trump blames nation's susceptibility to coronavirus outbreak on weakness of America's race-muddled gene pool. In an effort to explain the rising U.S. death toll, President Donald Trump told reporters on Monday that he blamed the nation's susceptibility to coronavirus on the weakness of America's race-muddled gene pool. It's sad to say, but decades of rampant missegregation have watered down our superior genetics to the point that we're completely defenseless against our invisible enemy, said Trump, arguing that widespread intermingling had made the U.S.'s COVID-19 response much more challenging compared to countries with less tainted bloodlines such as Australia and Iceland. We've done a good job, but unfortunately there's only so much we can do when we are tainted by DNA from the mongrel races. Folks, I've been saying it for years. The moment we got rid of the one-drop rule, we signed our own death warrants. Trump went on to call for all full-blooded Aryans to donate plasma in an effort to help return America to its racially pure heyday. And that's a stunning article, isn't it? They really go. I mean, if you're a fan of the president, and maybe you are in the chat, they go lower than anyone could ever go, right? They're accusing him not only of being a racist, but of being a public racist and a eugenicist, right? He believes that against the mixing of races. He's got these 1800s type ideas, right? These very old ideas. And yet the Onion doesn't just write the headline. They write the whole paragraph. They go story level. There's one more level they could have gone, 3 or 4 paragraphs, comments of different people. They didn't go that far, but whew, they went far. And it doesn't sound that far off, does it? It does. It sounds like something he'd say in private, not in public. Shout out again to Ben, the fantastic BTC IoT tutorial. You can watch that right here on the World Crypto Network. Learn how to make your own Bitcoin hardware wallet. I saw people in the comments not really understanding it. Sure, you could buy a Trezor or Ledger, one of those. But if you wanted to make your own, have another as a backup, and maybe have a fun way to carry around Bitcoin, and no one will ever know it because it looks like a little video game. Very cool stuff that Ben's doing with Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. right here on the World Crypto Network. So check that out. I remember yesterday they declared that the street leading to the White House, 16th Street, I think it was, is now Black Lives Matter Plaza. Well, the protesters thought that was a little not enough. So they wrote on the street, defund the police, attempting to focus the movement on a doable goal, on action. So now we have a new slogan, Black Lives Matter. They certainly do. But now, because Black Lives Matter, because all the horrible things we've seen in the street with protesters being beaten, journalists being beaten, lots of innocent people of various races and backgrounds and colors and creeds and everything and religions and all these things, all being beaten by the same people. It's really funny. You go out there, you can't find that many cases of the protesters attacking other protesters. Certainly they've stopped some looters. They've pointed them out. They stopped that guy who was smashing up the curb to make it into rocks so you could throw them and hurt people and break businesses. But it always seems to be the police attacking the protesters. So maybe we should defund the police. I'm reminded of a great scene in Rick and Morty where Rick is going to destroy the entire galaxy. And he gets in there and he changes the value of their currency from 1 to 0. And then it cuts to the president's office. And the guy says, oh, well, at the military, we could get out there and bust some heads and restore order if you pay us. And suddenly they don't have any money to pay anyone. And it's like, as much as people like going out into the street and busting heads, they won't do it. They'll only do it if you pay them. They won't do it for free. Maybe some people will, and obviously they would be the worst. But everyone else wants to be paid. So if you defund the police, they would stop being paid, and presumably they would stop beating people up. So that would be a great move forward. We could take the rest of the money, hire private security for private security needs. We could hire community officers for community officer needs. We could reshape the entire structure. And then it goes a little further because we're also wasting a lot of money on military. But again, maybe this is the one. Maybe this is one where America changes and gets better. Or it's the one that kicks America into full dictatorship and it locks down and we never ever talk about things getting better again. Which is pretty much what they did in China after Tiananmen Square. Just came up a couple of days ago. Don't forget. The Seattle police are arresting one woman who screamed for help. They've pulled up in several vehicles with mace out. They have about 30 police officers to arrest one woman. So again, these police aren't even very good at what they do. They don't seem to be trained in martial arts. A lot of them don't seem very physically fit. And all of them have this problem of not even be able to subdue one person one-on-one or even two-on-one. They need at least 4 or 5-on-1. That's like a union joke, isn't it? That's like the construction site that you drive by where there's one guy jackhammering and 4 guys watching. It's like that, but instead of jackhammering, the one guy's beating the shit out of another human being. But he needs 4 guys to watch him to make it okay. Balaji is really going back to the basics here. Consensual government is a superset of democracy. Democracy's legitimacy comes from the consent of the people. That consent can be given by voting with ballot, feet, wallet, or some combination thereof. The key is that people have opted in and given manifest, conscious consent. And this is a lot what the lady was talking about earlier, where she said there was a social contract and that they had played ball and tried to create a business. And every time the people who are supposed to protect their businesses and protect their lives come in and kill them, which completely ruins their business, ruins their lives, ruins them for generations. And this had happened over and over again. And that they were removing their consent. The social contract had failed them. They didn't care what happened to the society around them. And that it can't function without consent. Police officers think they're really impressive. They have all that riot gear, the military gear. They're hopelessly outnumbered by the protesters in every single situation. I don't want this to happen. I'm not looking for the protesters to get violent. There's a whole thing this morning going on Twitter about Tom Arnold, the actor and comedian, famously married to Roseanne Barr. Apparently, he's trying this whole say crazy things to piss people off thing, but what he said is he suggested that the African-American protesters, the black protesters, should do the same thing that the NRA does, and they should go out there with their weapons. And he was suggesting that black people should get weapons and go back to the protest, which obviously, even as I'm saying these words, it's a horrifying thing to say. It's a lot like the woman the other day who was giving a brick to a black man, and the black lady came up and said, no, don't you give this brick to him. He'll get killed. Could you imagine if it wasn't a brick and it was a machine gun or a rifle or whatever, visibly weapons going to these protests? But it does bring up a good double standard. Obviously, they're destroying him with the PC police. I don't even want to look at what's happening to Tom Arnold today because, again, he's made a suggestion. He's made a interesting suggestion. Again, horrifying. Even out of my lips, I'm saying, whoa, don't go down there with weapons. It's not safe. But it does seem like a horrible double standard, and we've played the views of the white protest where they had the weapons and they wanted haircuts from a couple weeks ago, and they wanted to go to bars and they wanted to go to casinos and whatever else. And then you play these now, and no one has weapons. No one's bringing anything. It does seem like a double standard. Maybe Tom Arnold's onto something, but maybe he phrased it wrong. Maybe he said the wrong thing. But yeah, he's getting it today. J.K. Rowling is getting it today. I don't really know what J.K. Rowling said. I think that she said women are the only people that menstruate and bleed every month, something like that. And it's gotten into the whole trans thing and so on and so forth. But yeah, J.K. Rowling is in a lot of trouble again, which is funny because she was messing with us Bitcoiners a while ago, and it seems like she's found a much, much, much bigger hornet's nest to put her hands in now. And then, of course, Tom Arnold's in it too. So keep an eye on what's trending on Twitter. It's always fun. I still wish they'd put little tombstones by the dead people that said rest in peace, or a little birthday cake by the birthday people, because you're always wondering, is it a birthday? Is it a birthday? Are they dead? Or did they say something horrible? And today, depending on what you believe, I don't know, Tom Arnold said something and J.K. Rowling said something. So many other people are reacting. Continuing with Balaji. Conversely, a nominal democracy may not retain consent of the governed. If you could somehow carry out a representative poll of Democratic People's Republic of Korea, those who weren't brainwashed may want to leave. The point is, calling yourself a democracy doesn't make you one. It's the consent of the people. Just like we've been talking about here for a couple of days, how you can't police a group without their consent. You go in to police two fighting families. Neither of the families trust the police. Neither of the families go to the police. The fight escalates and escalates and escalates. There's tons of collateral damage, destroying businesses and people around these two fighting families, whether they're the Montagues and the Capulets, whether it's the Salazzos and the, I don't know, another Godfather name, Italians, or whether it's the Triads or whoever it is. These are all family fights. These are all feuds, and they require a trusted third party to come in. And if that trusted third party doesn't exist and that trust is withdrawn, there's no policing you can do. You can't ever get these families to crack and work with you to try to have peace. You're just going to be cleaning up messes. You're just going to drive around with the coroner and the body bags, and you're just going to clean up messes. So we'll see how that turns out. A surprising story here. A lot of people talking about this. 150 to 200 people attended a Black Lives Matter rally in Vidor, an East Texas town that's infamously associated with racism and the Klan. So maybe even in the heart of East Texas, this message that Black Lives Matter and that police brutality needs to be stopped, and all the police brutality that we've seen in the streets, maybe it's reaching home. You know, like George W. Bush said, you know, you've got to catapult the propaganda. You got to shoot it over their heads, right? Maybe some of it reaches them. Las Vegas locally, funny story here. So Las Vegas locally is he's worried about the coronavirus, let's just say. This other account called Vital Vegas, who I love. I love both these accounts. They do great work. But he's a little not worried about the virus, let's just say. So it's kind of been really interesting to see what was previously just announcements about Vegas. They're building a new casino. There's going to be a new show here. I really like the rum and cokes at this place, that kind of thing, right? It's become a little political because the one guy just keeps celebrating everything being open and he's excited to go back. And the other guy's like, not so sure. And this is the not so sure guy. So he says, if everyone could stop referring to Las Vegas as a super spreader event, that would be great. Thanks. And again, we're seeing a little bit of the potential future if the coronavirus does spread horribly from a place like Las Vegas, a recreational destination. We might see Las Vegas and casinos become as bad a place to go as a cruise ship. No one wants to get on a cruise ship right now. We're in a very strange bubble where people still want to go out to Las Vegas and they still want to gamble and they want to be in close quarters, and we'll see how that turns out. We talked about this first thing this morning. Well, no, actually, this isn't the withdrawal. This is worse. This is Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington both had strong protests over the night. It looks like the military, the media was embedded here with the National Guard, presumably filming them from behind. Seattle police just arrested the man who filmed them macing a little girl last week. Many people don't believe in coincidence and believes that the Seattle police are targeting protesters. This is the second time in 24 hours. They had huge shows of force both times, and the original poster says they would be lying if they said they weren't terrified. So things are getting worse in Seattle, where it sounds like the police are being vindictive against those who filmed the protest. Shout out to Jennifer in the chat for sharing that link. And we have more from Seattle. One of the person who took the picture of the little girl is being denied bail. No reason is given. The box is simply blank. Bail denied. More military leaders continue to stand out against Trump. This is Admiral McRaven, the guy who led the team that killed Osama bin Laden. Admiral McRaven says the truth about Donald Trump.
I made 2 points in the op-ed, Jake. First was that, if you want to destroy an organization, any organization, you destroy it from within, you destroy it from without, and then what you do is you convince everybody that you're doing the right thing. So when you take a look at what the president has done, he's undermined the intelligence community, the law enforcement community, the Department of Justice, the State Department. He has called the press the enemy of the American people. And I will tell you, I've fought a lot of America's enemies. The press is not the enemy of the American people. Then you take a look at undermining us from without. He's obviously left our allies, the Kurds, on the battlefield. We feel like we have betrayed them. He's undermined our NATO allies. He's taken us out of the JCPOA and the TPP. And really, the international community has lost faith in America. And then throughout the course of all of this, he's convinced us that he's doing it for all the right reasons. And I think that is really what is troubling. But if I can, the other part of the op-ed that I think is equally important is that I think Trump forgets that we are a nation of values, that we are not just transactional. He's a transactional president. He believes that it's only good if it is good for us. But he forgets that we're the same nation that fought Nazism and fascism and imperialism and communism and terrorism. And we did that not because it was just good for us, but because it was the right thing to do. And the men and women in the military and the intelligence community and the law enforcement community, those people, those Americans believe that these values are important. I don't believe the president fully understands that.
And you.
They did it not just because it was good for them, but because it was the right thing to do. Shout out to Swift on Security. Taylor Swift, security expert, writes a neat idea for a Doctor Who story. Doctor Who travels to a world where Anywhere a camera isn't pointing, an American riot cop shows up and starts beating you. All of society is architected around keeping lights and cameras running. They experience a Carrington event. Everything goes dark. The screaming begins. Nice, huh? Nice story idea. People are asking, you expect cops to remain calm even when they're being yelled at, threatened, or attacked? And Fred Coppersmith responds, he says, yes, I expect them to be trained to remain calm, trained to de-escalate. That's the only way they ensure our safety and theirs. We have a video of the police officers in Seattle arresting Evan Hara, who took the video of the 9-year-old girl that they maced yesterday. They're worried that this may be a retaliatory arrest in Seattle, that the police are now extrajudiciary. They're moving above the judicial system and working against their perceived enemies in the community. This man allegedly filmed the police who maced a 9-year-old girl. Arresting the man who filmed it does not erase the fact that you maced a 9-year-old girl. No one's ever going to forget about that. So this is a cover-up. It's a bad idea. It's retribution. It's revenge. It's a horrible look from police officers and from all of Seattle. And maybe their police department needs to be disbanded too. Maybe this is a nationwide disband all the police, hire private security for a few days, and start some kind of community policing reforms. I don't know what the right solution is. I haven't been studying this for a million years. I'd love to read some reports and so on. I think President Obama said that he had a really good report that we could all read that would help us understand the history of the problem, potential solutions for the problem, downsides of the solutions, so on and so forth. They're worried about it in Seattle. This is a description of the people who saw it happen. This is a video of the arrest. 7 squad cars for a man supposedly using a laser pointer. This is really happening. They have gone to war with the people of this city. What the fuck is happening? And the author continues, speculation on Twitter. These motherfuckers have me scared for my family right now. Scared for my children. Scared for their future. This is beyond anything I expected. That they're so brazen and bold about it. That they make such a show about it. Even though the whole block is filming them. And we are coming up on the second half of what happens when you film everything. You have to take action. There has to be change. It's not enough just to film everything and see how bad the opponent is. There has to be action, change, reform. Otherwise, we just documented a police state. And then you just keep living in it. So yes, there needs to be change. There needs to be reform. And this is never going to stop until there's change and until there's reform. Not sure if we can really see it, but the Seattle Police Department is dragging a mother out of her car while her 9-year-old is in the back seat. The officer says she has multiple counts of assaulting an officer, saying that they assaulted an officer at the protest a couple of days ago. So this is now a second report of police in Seattle seeking revenge on protesters. This is not acceptable. It's not going to be allowed to go on. And this cover-up is not going to work. So it's a very big mistake being made here by the Seattle Police Department. They could all lose their jobs for this. They could all be sued for this. What we really need is to take the legal protections off of police officers. Any other job, you do wrong, you beat the hell out of somebody, you're an IT specialist, you're a computer geek, you beat the hell out of somebody, you work at a fast food place, you lose your job. And you get sued by the person that you hurt. So that needs to happen to police officers. The Buffalo mayor is calling the 75-year-old man shoved by police officers a major instigator during protests. So fucking what? So fucking what? You can push him down because of that? A major instigator? So fucking what? He's 75-year-old. Have your men show a little decency and just take him to the side without hurting him. Can they do that? Are there enough of them on the street to handle a 75-year-old man without hurting them? I don't care if he's a major instigator. You mean he used his mouth? You couldn't handle the mouth of a 75-year-old man and you have all that riot gear and allegedly training? What kind of training do you give these people? So yes, fire the Buffalo mayor, fire the Buffalo Police Department. The whole thing rots from the top, right? Kill the body, the head will die. No, kill the head. Again, who benefits from Trump ruining America's relationship with Germany and Europe? Has America first become Trump first? And again, Angela Merkel told President Trump that she would not attend the Group 7 meeting. She says that it's still too hairy with the coronavirus, and it's not a good idea, especially in the United States where the coronavirus has not been controlled. In return for this, out of revenge and seeming to serve another master, Trump took 9,500 troops from NATO out of Germany and brought them back to the U.S., making Europe and NATO less safe, improving situation for, that's right, Vladimir Putin and Russia. That's right. NATO weaker, Russia stronger. That's good work, Trump. And just in case anyone's not keeping score, we have an image here from the Indiana Jones film. You can see on the left, Indiana Jones, American, is an anti-fascist, and the person he's beating up, the Nazi, is a fascist. So, which side are you on? This was fantastic. Ivanka Trump put out another tone-deaf speech. A very strange speech, very strange jewelry choices, background, everything about it is odd. But fortunately, it's already been recut into a really great political advertisement here from Midas Touch. Let's take a look at Ivanka Trump and the sacrifices that she's had to make in her very difficult life. Twitter video doesn't work. You have to do it the other way. But here we go.
Come without challenges.
She's had a rough time.
Your journey to this day did not come without challenges, sacrifices, determination, grit, sweat, and likely even a few tears.
Tear gas is now being fired.
An entirely peaceful protest.
Our entire society is engaged in a national endeavor to take care of the safety and well-being of our people.
You have to dominate the streets.
You are a wartime graduate.
Go inside now! Get in the house!
In my own life, I found that my greatest personal growth has arisen from times of discomfort and uncertainty.
The Chinese government awarded Ivanka 7 new trademarks.
Hours later, she dined with the Chinese president at her father's Mar-a-Lago resort.
Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner earned at least $82 million last year.
Throughout our history, brave men and women have faced daunting challenges, and they have embraced the adventure.
President Trump was briefly taken to the White House underground bunker.
I had deferments because I had a foot thing, and I had deferment for that.
An 8-foot-high fence has been put up at the White House.
No person will be unchanged from living through this present hardship.
Powerful commercial from Midas Touch, really taking the tone-deaf Ivanka statement and turning it into ammunition to unseat Trump. Bloomberg Opinion writes, around 40% of U.S. bars and restaurants will never reopen or will fail. So that's a lot of jobs. And there's no plan to fix this, no plan to restore them, no plan to help the restaurants come back, maybe to give them loans or anything like that. Congress has done nothing since the House passed the HEROES Act, and Mitch McConnell did nothing. Mitch McConnell in the Senate is blocking all bills from the House, ruining the way that American government works. More than 400 bills have not even been brought up in the Senate, not even debated, all blocked by one man, Mitch McConnell, the same person who stole the Supreme Court seat from President Obama and Merrick Garland. One thing is clear, Trump's threat to dominate the protesters and aggressive dispersion tactics from last week did not work. Protesters kept coming back, and they only had their biggest showing today. So the protests are getting bigger. The violent tactics used by the president and the police forces did not work. And now, former President George W. Bush will not support the re-election of Donald Trump. Colin Powell says he'll vote for Joe Biden. David Wallace Wells writes, watch out, we have normalized an once unthinkable level of dying. Matt Grossman says, if there is a second wave of COVID, I expect it will be much harder, if not impossible, to build and sustain political and public support for broad lockdowns. Efficacy and trust could fail, fatigue will be high, costs will be salient, and polarization could be even more immediate. So yes, the right thing to do when we have additional outbreaks is to stay home and not spread the virus, but many people are going to find it difficult to do the right thing because of political discussions and debates, and because they had to be locked down before, and it was so hard, and all these things. So they'd rather go out into the world, spread the virus, work on Team Virus, and try to kill more human beings. So it's up to you. Team Virus, Team Human Beings. President George W. Bush and Senator Mitt Romney will not support Mr. Trump's re-election, and other GOP officials are considering a vote for Biden. This is unprecedented. This has never happened in our lifetimes, most of our lifetimes listening to this. People from the other party, months before the election. This is not like just the day before, the week before. This is months before the election, 6 months or so, are supporting the other side. That's how bad it's getting. Let's listen to Colin Powell telling Jake Tapper that he'll be voting for Joe Biden. Colin Powell, a Republican, often considered to be a Republican nomination for president. Many people wanted him to run. A famous hero general from the Gulf War, a famous disgraced general from the W. Bush administration, famously threatening the United Nations with a vial of water that he claimed to be anthrax, a great metaphor for the weapons of mass destruction that were never found in Iraq. Still, people respect him. He was a general. He's got a great work ethic. He's written some good books. Let's listen to what Colin Powell has to say.
Protesters taking to the streets this week in opposition to racial injustice and police brutality. What's been your personal reaction to this moment? Do you think that the country is in something of a turning point?
We are at turning points. I mean, the Republican Party, the president, thought they were sort of immune. They can go say anything they wanted. And even more troubling, the Congress would just sit there and not in any way resist what the president's doing. And the one word I have to use with respect to what he's been doing for the last several years is a word I would never have used before. I never would have used with any of the 4 presidents I've worked for. He lies. He lies about things. And he gets away with it because people will not hold him accountable. And so while we're watching him, we need to watch our Congress. I watched the senators heading into the chamber the other day after all this broke, with a reporter saying, what do you have to say? What do you have to say? They had nothing to say. They would not react. And so we're not a country of just a president. We have a Congress. We have a Supreme Court. But most of all, we have the people of the United States, the ones who vote him in and the ones who vote him out. I couldn't vote for him in '96, and I certainly cannot in any way support President Trump this year.
So, yeah, I know you didn't vote for him in 2016. I assume, based on the fact that you approved Joe Biden when then Senator Obama picked him to be his running mate in 2008, I assume you're going to be voting for Joe Biden? I'm
very close to Joe Biden on a social matter and on a political matter. I've worked with him for 35, 40 years, and he is now the candidate, and I will be voting for him.
Wow, Colin Powell not only criticizing the current administration, not only criticizing the Republican senators for refusing to answer the questions and for having nothing to say, he endorses the president's political opponent, Joe Biden, saying that he agrees with him politically and that he agrees with his character. So Colin Powell stepping out there early, getting his vote in before the election. What the heck? This has political... Well, these Twitter settings are getting pretty weird. So I wasn't going to play this before, but if they're going to mark it. So this has potentially sensitive content, but it's just about maps. Listen to this lovely elderly lady teach you about maps. I've known some of this before. I'm big into maps. I know about all the different political and so forth, land discovered maps, the navigational maps, and so forth. But watch her lay it out here. And a warning, this is politically sensitive. This is sensitive content.
Take this piece,
Imagine why.
this piece off here and put it over here. And now you see the United States is no longer in the middle of the map.
Right.
Now, I did this with a major record company in New York City, I think in 1970. And an older man stood up in the back of the room and said, "Now, Elliot, you've gone too far." I said, "What's your problem?" You can't do that with a map." I said, "Well, actually you can." He said, "No, the United States isn't in the middle of the map anymore." I said, "The United States never was in the middle of the map. You need to realize this depends on how you draw your map." And then I pointed this little fact out to him. South America is actually 9 times larger than Greenland.
Even though it doesn't really look like it.
No, it is. South America is actually 9 times larger than Greenland.
It's crazy.
Now, according to your social studies teachers, what is the equator? Halfway between the North Pole and the South Pole on this map would be right about here.
Right.
And that means that Iowa has a semi-tropical climate. Well, you've been in Minnesota in the wintertime.
I've been in Iowa too. It's definitely
You know that it doesn't have a tropical climate. So you have to then introduce a real version of the map of the world. I think this is the one.
That's very good.
The Peters projection map. The sizes on this map are right. The shapes are distorted.
Wow.
Look at Greenland on this map. Right there. See it?
Yeah, it's really tiny.
See how small that is?
Right.
Look at it on the Mercator projection.
So why do they do that? I don't understand.
Why? Because the Pope commissioned Mercator to make a map that shows the spread of Christianity. So all the countries in which there are predominantly white people are larger than those in the southern part of the world, halfway between the North Pole and South Pole.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have children going to school and they're seeing this map,
right?
I wish it would have continued because I think she was great. She was doing great stuff with the maps. She's absolutely right on here, showing the difference between the Mercator projection right here, as she said, which was ordered by the Pope to show the areas where Christianity has spread. They're larger than the areas in the south. And the other map, the political or the accurate reading of the map, which does change the shapes of the continent slightly, but does provide more accurate shapes. So if you're curious about this, there's a lot of really cool maps. There's maps taken from, say, like the North Pole downward, a polar-oriented map. That's really cool to look at. There's other maps that cut it up into different shapes, kind of like triangle shapes that fit together. There's many different ways to map the world. And what's interesting is she says, the map you see is how you shape the world. If you're used to seeing this map with the United States in the middle, it's a U.S.-centric map. There are alternatives. So very interesting stuff about maps. I'm not sure why it got flagged, but I played it because it got flagged. And I thought it was really great before, so I'm glad to share it. Something positive that we can enjoy before we watch this car commercial. Before we do the car commercial, which is going to be really bad, you're not going to like it, let's check out Gonzo by Hunter S. Thompson. This is a large book. a photo book, many behind-the-scenes, real-life photos of Hunter S. Thompson, as well as some great stories and some essays. This is a large book. You can see Thompson right there with a gun. Large quotes of Thompson. And very cool stuff. All about the author of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, who famously ran for sheriff in Denver. You can see him there with his head shaved bald, getting ready to run for sheriff on the Freak Power ticket. Here he is in one of the famous convertibles, probably. He's got his T-shades, looking very, very guilty. Very conspiratorial, Hunter S. Thompson. And here he is in the Curse of Lono, catching that big fish, the shark, or the swordfish there in Hawaii. Famous photo of the dock. And you should check this out. It's called Gonzo. That's part of Big Book Day. We also showed you Gonzo art, Ralph Steadman, the artist who drew all the pictures in Fear and Loathing Las Vegas. And we have a bonus for you because I have all my bookshelves here. This is a really special time. I just pull things off the shelf for you. Check out Gonzo, the graphic biography of Hunter S. Thompson. That's right. You don't like books. There it is. Boom. It's a comic book. It's a graphic novel. These are really great. More and more of these are being made these days. I have, well, I'll pull them because they're here. I have a couple other ones, including Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the graphic novel. Very cool comic book version of Hunter S. Thompson's famous and partially fictional trip to Las Vegas, made into the famous movie. So you can check that out. That's a graphic novel version of that. And like I said, I have the historical ones as well. Maybe a third, but I think they're all here. I have The Beats, a graphic history. And this is the history of the beatniks and the social movement that had Jack Kerouac and Ginsberg and Bukowski and all the other ones. Thompson's in there at the end too. But a very cool book, a neat way to read a history. Something like this. I think that's Allen Ginsberg right there. So it's a really neat way to have history become accessible if you like comic books and graphic novels. This one's called The Beats, Graphic History. And I also have another really good one called SDS, Students for a Democratic Society, a Graphic History. And this is a protest movement in 1960s in Berkeley. And again, you might not know much about it or the leaders, but it's a really great way to read about it in comic book form. Really goes by. I've read both of these, all of these books here. I still haven't cracked People's History of the United States. It's just too damn long. I've read parts of it. But yeah, something like this, graphic novels, very accessible, very story-based, individual character-based. Some of these have too many characters. You're not going to remember the name of every single revolutionary leader. But it's very cool to see their ideas and check them out. And fortunate it's on... got my whole library here in one place, first time in years, so we can really celebrate this together. And, you know, you can buy these books on Amazon. That's where I bought them all, pretty much, except for thrift stores and bookshops and all the other things. But there you go. It's Sunday. It's Big Book Day. I want you to have something that clears it up, breaks up the news a little bit. And now we're going to watch this guy do a car commercial. This is... I forget. It's like Treasury Secretary, I think. This is it's not Mnuchin, but it might be one of the other ones. Let's hear his fantastic car commercial, as quoted to us by Sarah Cooper, the lady that does the Trump, lip syncing or something. She's a fantastic comedian. But let's check this out. I think this is Larry Kudlow. He used to be on TV for Fox News. One of the reasons that the president hired him to be an economic advisor, and he's got low prices on some great cars. Let's see what he's got.
America is coming back. 3 million new jobs, lower unemployment rate, furloughed temporary layoffs, going back to work, green shoots popping up everywhere, stocks are soaring, POTUS policies are working. Stay with the winners, Trump and Pence and me. The best is yet to come. America is coming back. 3 million new jobs, lower.
The best is yet to come. Great stuff there from Kudlow. And we already watched Colin Powell endorsing Vice President Biden. This was pretty good, actually. I hadn't, I don't want to talk, guys. I hadn't seen this yet. Apparently, it's the best Bitcoin video of the year, and it hadn't come to me yet, so maybe you guys haven't seen it. It's a movie parody of the movie Limitless, so we'll probably lose our ad rights or whatever. But let's check out this little Bitcoin parody here. They say it's the best Bitcoin parody of the year.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets.
I was blind, but now I see.
Can you characterize everything that the Fed has done this past week as essentially flooding the system with money?
Yes, exactly.
And there's no end to your ability to do that?
There is no end to our ability to do that.
Simply flooded the system with money?
Yes, we did. That's another way to think about it. We did.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally. So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money.
I go home and ask him, said, why don't we learn about money in school? And he looked at me and says, because the government doesn't let us teach that subject. The government tells us what we can teach and what we can't teach. And I thought that was strange. And I said, but aren't we going to school to learn about money? He says, no, your job is to get a job.
It is well enough that the people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary systems. For if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. Henry Ford, 1922. It's time for Plan B. That was pretty good. I like the part with the money printer going burr. I hadn't seen that reenacted into real life. That was pretty cool. In 2018, New York taxpayers spent $230 million settling cases against the NYPD for excessive force, false arrests, etc. That's more than enough to cover a year of free bus rides for New Yorkers. It's time to stop subsidizing brutality and start investing in people. And he's absolutely right. For all that we spend on the police overtime, the police military vehicles, the ineffective training of the police, we could be spending that on parks, on services for people, on unemployment insurance, on all kinds of other things that would actually help people instead of these things that don't work as advertised and only seem to hurt the people they're supposed to be protecting. Feel like we're getting close to the top. Heavily armed men kidnap a young woman, refusing to identify themselves before throwing her into a minivan and driving away. This was in San Francisco. As Dean Maisley writes, there are now anonymous, heavily armed men refusing to identify themselves or the department they're a part of, abducting citizens and throwing them into unmarked vans. They refuse to answer why they are arresting or where they are taking the abductees. In America. Pretty terrifying stuff. At least the National Guard is withdrawing from DC, so we have some positive news for you this morning. And we did it. We made it to the top. Oh, we made it through the news. If you'd like to support this show, check out our Patreon account at patreon.com/WCN. You can donate $5 a month or $20 a month, depending on how much you'd like to support this show. So far, 9 patrons are donating $54 a month to support this show. So thank you so much for your support. You could also support us by buying a t-shirt or a mug at the World Crypto Network store at worldcryptonetwork.store. We've got Bitcoin Not Bombs by Davi Barker, a new version of the original shirt. We've got the World Crypto Network logo shirt and mug. And we've got a fun one that says, Treasures Don't Float. So if you have any trouble with your treasures and maybe a boating accident or a yachting accident, you might want to just get this shirt, and then you'd be ahead of the schedule in case anyone wants to explain what happened. You just say, hey, read my shirt. Treasures don't float. That's what happened to my money. And shout out to Philippe for helping us out with this design. Very cool stuff at worldcryptonetwork.store. And I'll work on getting some more links to that and so on and so forth. But that's just more web design for me to do. And you could also donate at Tallycoin, where our Bitcoin fundraiser to raise $1 million in Bitcoin is going very well. We only need 105 Bitcoins, and we would have the $1 million to help build the World Crypto Network into a 24/7, 365 days a year cryptocurrency and news channel to get you the truth. So you can donate now. You could even donate $10 in the Lightning Network. Well, that's Bitcoin. It didn't work. Now we're lost. Anyway, if you click Bitcoin on Lightning on Tallycoin, you can just click the $10 button. It'll create a QR code right there for the Lightning Network. If you wanted to donate $10 to our fundraiser, you could do it there. But just a reminder, you can always support the show. Give us a thumbs up and a share. Subscribe down below. Hit the bell for notifications. Follow me on Twitter at MadBitcoins, or follow the World Crypto Network on Twitter at WorldCryptoNet. So there's all kinds of ways you can support the show. A lot of them don't cost any money at all. So those are great ways to support the show. And you can also participate in the chat and the comments afterwards. If you find something you like or something you want to debate about, you can always timestamp it just by writing down the time code into the YouTube comments. 1:57:16 would give you a pretty close link to what we're talking about right now. Then you could comment on it. So thanks to everybody for commenting, being in the chat, donating, thumbs up and share, subscribing. We've got 56 people watching on a Sunday. Must be a really important call because I didn't put the number up, but let's see. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from? Oops, I didn't push the button for the sound. Hold just one more second. All right, try again. Caller, can you hear me?
Hello?
All right, it's working good.
Yeah, I can hear you. It's Paul from Moscow.
Hey, how's it going, Paul from Moscow? What's been going on lately for you?
Yeah, it's going pretty good. I was actually wondering, what do you think about the latest moves in crypto and Bitcoin? Do you think it's going to the moon finally with this crisis or what?
Oh, I hope so. I never know if it's going to the moon or not, and it's always, whenever I sell some, it always goes up, and whenever I buy some, it always goes down. So I'm still trying to hold it, if that's anything to go by, meaning that it'll probably go down because I'm holding it.
Yeah,
but
the same thing actually happens all the time.
See, that's it. It's your luck too. You're ruining it. But no, I mean, I think it's great to be back at 9,000. I've seen the reports that we could go to 6,000, so I find that scary. I like the reports where we go to 12,000. That would be good. Cash out, make a little profits there.
He's bullish now.
Tone Vase is bullish now? Well, that's good.
Yeah, he's bullish. He was in a no trade zone, but last time I seen he was bullish.
Well, that's good for today. But we'll have to see how it turns out.
Do you think? Yeah, actually, here in Russia, the whole corona crisis has not stopped yet. We still are legally made to wear masks and gloves, which is pretty stupid as far as some doctors say. They say that masks actually are bad for health and they restrict the breathing, and people with heart conditions may get some severe complications from that. But the government doesn't really care. The stats seems to go down, but they have the referendum on the 25th of June. So they want everybody to be out of their houses as soon as possible at the same time while the rates are going up, while they are not allowing anybody to walk freely without the mask. So it's sort of a, I don't know what to call it. It's
Sounds
sort
like
of like they have double ideas in their head.
Sounds like a catch-22, right? So
yeah.
you have to
say one thing, but say the other thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm not so sure about the masks being harmful. I think that would be a pretty rare occasion, but they don't really protect you. They protect other people. But I like the Asian idea that we should just all put the masks on. We should all try to protect everybody, and then that would help reduce the virus. I'm also not sure about the gloves. Originally, we were very afraid of touching everything, and everyone was Lysoling everything and covering it with bleach and stuff, even their groceries. And they've backed off on that recently. They say they don't think it lives on surfaces as long as they thought before. So, but it's very hard for the public health people to be that up to date on the medicine when, legitimately the medicine's changing. A month or two ago, I would have told you bleach everything that you touch. And now I would say you don't have to do it as much. So it does change.
Yeah,
slowly.
that's exactly what I was doing. I actually bought like a 5-liter jug of alcohol and then some bleach, and I was disinfecting everything. And then I went a little bit crazy on it, but then it seemed like I actually still don't know anybody in my circle who catch the corona, so it's kind of weird. I actually have been to an ICU recently with a different condition, but the person next to me was lying with pneumonia, and they were on what it's called rebreather. So how do you call it? Fuck, I forgot. The oxygen machine. So they were completely out of
ventilators.
Ventilator. They're on a ventilator, and they were not conscious. And I was in the same room with them without any mask or anything, but I didn't catch it. So I don't know really what's going on.
Well, lucky so far. I mean, let's just hope it keeps that way, because we have the same thing here where it's still out there, and a lot of people have gone out to protest no matter that it is out there, and it's confusing a lot of people. A lot of people wanted to have funerals and larger occasions, and they weren't having them, and then they see these protests and they wonder why they can't. Have you seen any protests there? Is anyone joining the American protests all the way from Russia?
No, actually, American people are way more free than Russians. Russian people are all afraid and sitting in their homes and just put their heads in the sand and try to ignore all the problems, the economic problems that are ahead, and people actually are suffering economically already. So I don't really think there's going to be protests, especially considering the fact that Putin is changing the constitution on the 25th of June to stay president forever. So if there is no protest now, there probably is not going to be any protest ever.
That's a good point, and a chilling view at the possible other side of the future of America and some of these other countries where you just can't protest. It's not safe at all. So it's much better to stay home and say nothing, and the state benefits, and hopefully you stay safe. So scary stuff over there, Peter, but glad to hear that you're not sick and doing well.
The second time.
Huh?
My name is Paul. You called me Peter the second time.
Oh, it says Piotr on the thing, so I'm reading it as Peter. But no, I'm wrong.
My dead name is Peter.
Well, they're all very, very related. So no, I'll try to call you Paul. But and let me know on what your name is in the chat, so I can get you back in the chat. I don't know how to unblock you because I don't know your name. Well, just send me a text with the username, and I'll try to take care of that. But anything else going on your mind about Bitcoin or anything else today?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to go to the moon. I think this crisis has to go. I think this crisis is going to go bad and worse and worse. Time the civil unrest. First it was COVID, then it's civil unrest, then it's going to be economic problems, I suspect. And once the economy starts to open and nothing is actually working, like big businesses have lost their capital and they cannot restart. Once that starts to happen, people are going to find out that the job loss was permanent and not temporary. So I think that's going to be the next hit. And after that, I expect the global economy to completely collapse, although Tone Vays doesn't agree with that. But I think many people are thinking the same way, and I think that's what's going to happen, and that's what's going to send Bitcoin to the moon.
Well, Warren Buffett is still famously in cash. He's a very big investor over here in the U.S., and he sold a lot of things recently that look like they've recovered, so he sold badly. But that's only in the short term. In the long term, he's still sticking with cash, and I don't think it's that bad a thing. But who knows if a true economic collapse, what good cash will do you anyway. So
maybe he hasn't heard about Bitcoin that much. I don't think many people understand Bitcoin the way people understand it who dipped into it in 2015, 2013, like you and I. Maybe you were in 2011, I don't remember. But a lot of people don't have very good understanding of Bitcoin.
It's difficult to grasp. I think we've talked about it a lot, how it takes kind of a multidisciplinary mind. The economic side isn't enough. The computer side isn't enough. The political side isn't enough. You need a mixture of all these different kind of brains or thinking patterns or exposure to information to really start to understand what it is, why it's scarce, why it's so valuable, and why so many people think it could be so much more valuable in the future. But yeah, I think it would be great if it went up about, an order of magnitude, so a 10x rise, something to 90 to 100,000. And then I think a lot of these plans for citadels are actually going to start getting underway. I think that as a bad idea as I think it is for a honeypot of a bunch of rich Bitcoiners to get together, maybe if they were just a little less rich and more normal people hanging out, I wouldn't mind hanging out with a bunch of Bitcoiners in a castle right now. It's not such a bad idea the way things are going.
Too.
So yeah, before I've been skeptical of it, and I'm going to remain skeptical. But just saying, if the thing went up enough and somebody had the room and we could go, get to a safe place, sounds kind of interesting. So we'll have to see how that goes.
I've actually never heard about the whole Citadel thing. I wish you could talk about it more on your show.
Yeah, I'll try to talk more. I mean, it's kind of a meme, so there's not much real about it. But there's the basic idea that, if you had previously it used to be a spaceship. And we used to say if you have a Bitcoin, you could get on the spaceship and you could leave Earth with all the Bitcoiners, and things will be great. But now it's become more of a castle or something somewhere, or maybe multiple castles, where a bunch of Bitcoin rich people would go because they don't have anything in common with normal people anymore. So I think Bitcoin would have to go up a lot more, or maybe you'd have to invest earlier and have a lot more Bitcoins than maybe I do. But these people are planning large things, and I don't know if they're going to be luxury or not very nice or what it's going to be. But I think there's going to be a lot of these kind of alternative living situations for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency people. So it's interesting.
I think we have to restructure our society as a whole. I think that would help it probably.
Yeah, this seems more like a Mad Max. Everybody else is running around like crazy, and the Bitcoiners are hiding out in a castle.
No.
So
hopefully just we get rich and other people stay the same, or maybe get richer a little bit too. I really don't want to see everybody suffering, because if everyone's going to be suffering, there's really not going to be a safe spot in the whole world, I don't think.
That's absolutely right. And it's absolutely right, too, that if everyone's suffering, what good is it to go drive a Lamborghini or have a nice thing? Like, it doesn't eventually, as callous as you might be, eventually it's going to come home to you how many people don't have food and you're driving around a fancy sports car. You really can't enjoy it that much. So
I would agree with that. Well, thank you for talking to me. It's been nice.
No problem, man.
Talk to you next time.
Give us a call anytime, and it's good to chat with you. And just stay safe out there, and stay home. Don't protest. Show respect. Good ideas. So lay low. All right.
Thank you. Bye, man.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much, Paul. And if you'd like to call us now, you can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word, or on the telephone at 1-518-600-1949. I'll try to keep the show going a little bit longer. There's a bit of a delay, but if you want to call now in kind of the next 5 minutes, we could do some more show. I don't have that much voice left. I've switched to the cough drops, still pounding the water. But yeah, I think 2 hours is about my limit for talking, is what I've found. But we did that 8-hour show, but I had a lot of help, and that helps a lot. Today I tried to play some videos and stuff, give myself breaks, chances to drink water, but about 2 hours of consecutive talking. I think that'll wear anybody out. I don't know, a friend of mine, Risto, I met him in Barcelona a couple times. He once asked me, how long can you talk consecutively? And I think he could talk much longer than I could. He had some real ideas and some plans to really talk about things, and he just loved to talk forever. I thought I did too, but after about 2 hours, I run out. So, and we covered the news and we covered everything. So think we did pretty good for a Sunday. So just advice for the rest of the Sunday. You know, have a nice day, go out there, read a book, think some thoughts, maybe watch something that you disagree with, watch some alternate video from the internet, or watch some Fox News, or watch some left-wing news, or watch something else. I don't know, just distract yourself. I've been watching Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, still loving the classic BBC sitcom about bureaucracy and government waste. And it's just very funny, very Orwellian, very dystopian in its language. So I would suggest that. And I'm also still recommending The Hunt. I've been trying to watch all the movies from 2020 because I think it might be possible to watch them all. There are not that many movies released, and they held a lot of movies over for next year, hoping that the movie theater disease-spreading idea reopens. But I'm not sure about that plan. But The Hunt is a great film. A bunch of people just drop down in the middle of a field. Suddenly they start being hunted. It all happens very quickly. It's a very nicely written film, and it's fun too. A bit of a slasher film, bit of some violence, obvious Quentin Tarantino influence, but it's one of the few kind of Tarantino ripoff films that I think does it right and really has kind of his spirit communicating, and it feels like Tarantino took some time off to do a fun slasher movie like he used to do in the old days. So check out The Hunt. It's on, I don't know, downloads and stuff. And thanks to everybody for joining us today. Today was Big Book Day. It's Sunday. I showed you Gonzo Art by Ralph Steadman. It's a big book. And Gonzo, Hunter S. Thompson, behind-the-scene photos of the man and some essays and stuff. So check that out. And thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye.